it's time for another trip.
Here we go again.
So, speaking about careers, I'll tell you my little story. When I was about 8 years old, Baba Jawara took me camping. And who would have thought that that first camping trip would make me want to become a forest ranger? I had no idea. A few years later, I started volunteering with that same organization because I wanted other kids to have the same experience that I did when I was little.
That's cool. I like working with kids.
Well, when I did finally get my first paid job in the outdoors, my supervisor, Rachel, had a master's degree in outdoor recreation, which basically means she's a professional at helping people have fun in the outdoors. Who even knew that was a job?
I didn't. That sounds awesome.
There are all types of jobs that might be new to you when you start to explore the great outdoors. I've learned that no matter what you're interested in, no matter what kind of work you think you're going to do, you can do it for the benefit of public lands. In many ways, the lands are run like businesses.
What if I want to be the boss?
You're thinking big here. Maybe you want to be a forest supervisor or the chief of the Forest Service.
Actually, I'm pretty good at math. What about something like accounting?
We call that budget, or sometimes grants and agreements. So if that's the kind of thing that you like, you can do that for the benefit of the great outdoors. You should check out the Natural Enquirer. It's a science journal for students. And if you're interested in math and science, it's got a great collection of information all about the types of scientists, including something called a statistical scientist, where your math skills would be perfect. Go to the Natural Enquirer website, www.naturalenquirer.org, and you can find the Scientists and Engineering Card series. There's a list of the scientist categories. You might have fun exploring a bunch of those categories like wildlife, insects, forests and plants, or social science, if that's of interest. Then there's a category for chemistry, biology, and math. And since you're interested in math, here's a person who is a statistical scientist, and you can learn where she went to school and what she does, and some more information about her job.
It's been quite a day, Amshat. You've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, we've gone from backyard to backcountry and back again. We've seen public lands managed by all different types of agencies. They're all so different, unique, special, and no matter where your next adventure in the great outdoors is, where you're on that beautiful piece of land, remember,
It's all yours.
yeah, it's all ours.
So, where should we go tomorrow?
I like your style, kid. Hey, Woodsy Owl. Man, it's good to see you. I don't mean to slow you down too much. I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday! Yeah. Wow. 50 years old, Woodsy. You look great. You've been spreading your message of conservation for 50 years. Lend a hand, care for the land. And now, if you at home want to learn a bit more about Woodsy Owl's message of conservation, you can ask all kinds of questions at Woodsy Owl's Facebook page, and we'll be answering them live, as in right now. Yeah. Welcome to Woodsy Owl Live, a distance learning adventure brought to you by the USDA Forest Service and the Natural Enquirer. I'm your host today, Chad Edwards. I'm a conservation educator with the United States Forest Service, which manages about 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands throughout the United States. I'd also like to introduce some of my colleagues who will be helping us today as we learn about Woodsy Owl and his conservation message. Today on screen, you're going to have Daisy Morgan, who is a volunteer and service program manager for the Forest Service and for the Southwestern region. Right?
Good morning.
Live from New Mexico.
Good morning.
Hey, Daisy, good morning, good afternoon, all of those, yes. We also have joining us today, Sally Claggett, who is joining us live from Maryland, and she's the Forest Service's liaison to the Chesapeake Bay program. Sally.
Thank you. Nice to be here, everyone.
Thank you both so much for joining us. We're going to check back with you in just a little bit, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing throughout today's program that we're watching. We're going to check in and make connections, right? This is obviously a live broadcast. You can see it. There's a little sign up there that says it's a live broadcast. And during this show, we want to hear from you folks at home, you folks at school, right? We want you to tell us your stories about how you connect to nature and your environment. And we want to be able to connect you to us. Yes, to our scientists and all of our resources, because we're here to serve you. But, you know, no one knows this message of conservation better than the man of the hour, Woodsy Owl. Yeah. So Woodsy has always said, lend a hand, care for the land. And that motto helps us stay connected. So send us your questions today on Woodsy Owl on Woodsy Owl's Facebook page, and we'll be able to answer them live. You should see a little place right there where you can go ahead and check out Woodsy Owl right there on Facebook. Answer questions or ask questions, and we'll have a team of folks answering them. No matter what name pops up, it's our team of scientists and researchers who are going to be answering. Okay, so let's meet some of those, or let's see who some of those folks are going to be. We have Iris Velez, the National Symbols Program Manager. That's both Smokey and Woodsy. We have Susan Cox, who is a Conservation Education Coordinator. We have Barbara McGinnis, a forester. Robert Westover, a Public Affairs Specialist. Sandy Marin, Tribal Relations Specialist. Jessica Nicholson, Director of the Natural Enquirer Program. Natural Enquirer. We have Nancy Strimple with Urban and Community Forestry. Yes. We also have Brett Butler, who's a research forester, and Emma Sass, who is representing from the Northern Research Station. What a great cast of characters. Oh, man. All right, let's get started. Woodsy has been helping us spread his message since 1971. In fact, it's September 15th On September 15th, 2021, it's Woodsy's 50th birthday. So happy birthday, Woodsy. And you know what? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Come on, Woodsy.
Thanks, Chat. Hi, I'm Woodsy Owl. My hope is that everyone can make a connection to the land. I love my home, and I hope you do too. So this show really isn't about me. It's about all of us. Like my friends here, Carmen and Jamal.
Thanks, Woodsy.
Yeah, I love my home too.
That's great. Why do you like it so much?
Well, I live in Chicago. Even though I live in the city, I still love to get outside, and there are places where I can explore nature. There's a park near my house, and I love to visit the stream, especially in the spring when the frogs come out.
And I live in the country, far away from any big cities. My family owns several acres of woods, and I like to fish in the streams that run through our property.
That's a great point, Carmen and Jamal. No matter where we live, humans are interconnected with nature. You're a part of an ecosystem, not just your local area, but the global ecosystem.
Right, and all of these ecosystems benefit all of us, like Jamal's forests help to create his streams.
Yeah, the trees draw up water through the ground and release moisture in the air. The water turns into clouds and eventually into rain. In fact, about 75% of fresh water comes from forests.
Actually, what you're talking about, Jamal, is a forest product.
Huh. So a forest product is anything a forest provides us that we can use?
You got it. So timber and firewood are obviously forest products, but even something like water is considered a forest product. Other examples include nuts and seeds, medicinal herbs and mushrooms, and most importantly, forests provide all kinds of ecosystem services.
An ecosystem service is anything our environment provides that benefits people.
Yes, there are 4 types of ecosystem services. There are provision services.
Like food and fuel.
There are regulating services.
Which help regulate things like climate, erosion, and pollution control.
There are supporting services.
Like soil formation and nutrient cycling.
And finally, there are cultural services.
Like opportunities for art, recreation, and education, and to promote heritage.
Hey, that's all a bit much to remember.
But that's the point. There are lots of different ecosystem services and forest products.
And just like there are lots of different forest products, there are lots of different ways in which forests are cared for and managed.
There are public forests that are open to everyone, and lots of private forests that are owned by individuals. In fact, there are more family-owned forests in the United States than all other forests combined.
There are also urban forests that can be found near or in large cities, like Central Park in New York City.
There are national forests that are maintained by the federal government.
There are experimental forests, where scientists can conduct long-term research and management studies.
There are working forests or community forests that are maintained for creating revenue with products like lumber or paper.
All of these forests have a special function for us and our land. And let's not forget about grasslands. In addition to managing national forests, the USDA Forest Service also manages 20 national grasslands totaling 4 million acres. Remember that all of these lands are yours, but they need a hand.
That's why we have to act in a responsible way when we're using our lands.
Even when it's for recreation.
Yeah, that's called outdoor ethics, which are moral guidelines for taking care of our surroundings for the benefit of everyone. One example is our Leave No Trace ethics that suggests 7 principles for anyone who enjoys our lands.
Plan ahead and prepare.
Travel and camp on durable surfaces.
Dispose of waste properly.
Leave what you find.
Minimize campfire impacts.
Respect wildlife.
And be considerate to other visitors.
Caring for the land requires you to be thoughtful and not careless.
That's where the Forest Service comes in. Just like our friend, Dr. Katie Moriarty, for example, who is a research wildlife biologist.
She helps us understand our ecosystem by studying all sorts of birds, mammals, reptiles, and amphibians out in nature. So cool.
There are lots of different jobs available with the Forest Service. Along with wildlife biologists, there are foresters who are experts in managing the growth of trees and other plants.
There are rangeland management specialists who are like foresters for grasslands.
There are recreation technicians who maintain places for the public to enjoy for hiking, camping, kayaking, and more.
The Forest Service is a big agency, so it also needs the same workers that any large organization would need to function, such as information technology specialists, purchasing agents, resource assistants, visitor information assistants, and even interns, all working towards serving our public lands.
But lands aren't just managed by the Forest Service. States, communities, and families also take care of many of our lands.
It takes all of us to help care for our lands. That's why it's so important for us to be connected.
Right, and there are many ways you can get involved and be connected right in your community, such as planting trees or picking up trash along a stream. You could also participate in a citizen science project.
I could be a scientist?
Of course. Many researchers have lots of people to help them gather data and observations. For example, you could help monitor the bee population in your community so that scientists can keep track of the health of these important pollinators. Check out citizen science opportunities on the Forest Service website.
Those are great ideas.
Thanks, Woodsy.
Sure, it's all about you and your connection to the forests and public lands.
But what about your role, Woodsy?
Yeah, we haven't talked about you yet, and you've been helping us for 50 years.
Okay, well, here's a little history. Back in the 1970s, many people became aware of many environmental threats to the quality of life for people, plants, and animals.
Chemicals in rivers caught fire.
Scientists documented dramatic declines in wildlife.
Air and water were polluted.
To respond to these threats, the Environmental Protection Agency was established, and laws were passed to protect the air, water, and endangered species. In addition, the first Earth Day was held in April 1970 to encourage all Americans to take action to help the environment.
The Forest Service decided that they needed a new mascot to encourage the public and children to protect and conserve the environment.
The Smokey Bear Wildfire Prevention ad campaign, started by the Forest Service in 1944, had been very successful in educating generations of Americans about their role in preventing forest fires.
And that only you can prevent wildfires.
A similar campaign was needed to educate people about their responsibility to protect and conserve the environment. Woodsy Owl was created in 1971 to spread the message,
Give a hoot, don't pollute.
For 50 years now, Woodsy Owl has been America's original and official icon for the environment.
He's been instrumental in helping teachers and parents inspire children to actively care for the environment.
Like my good buddy Smokey Bear, I'm a part of the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, Forest Service, and an official protected symbol.
Fast forward to Earth Day 1997.
Woodsy got a makeover.
That's right. I updated my looks. I got a backpack, some hiking shoes, and cool field pants.
You're looking good and safe for exploring the great outdoors and ready to fly across our forests.
Or lead children on nature hikes. And you also got a new message, right?
That's right. I like to say, lend a hand, care for the land. And it translates into many languages. The idea is for all of us, and especially kids, to form a healthy relationship with nature and explore the outdoor world around us.
Woodsy, you're one caring, friendly, and wise dude.
I also built on my original message of give a hoot, don't pollute, by inviting kids to think about the 4 R's.
To renew, reuse, recycle, and let compost rot.
You got it. My goal is actually pretty simple, to provide the opportunity for kids to appreciate the environment and encourage us all to conserve and protect our natural resources. So it's really not about me. It's all about you and your connections to the land. So let's get back to MChat so we can answer some of your questions. So just remember,
Lend a hand, care for the land.
All right. Thanks, Woodsy, for all that great information about your history and about different types of forests and ecosystem services, all of that. Thank you. And Woodsy, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but there are lots of people wishing you a happy birthday right now. And then we even saw in the chat that somebody asked the question about the difference between Smokey Bear's message and yours. So I'm glad you answered that in your video. Folks, keep those questions coming because we will keep on answering them either there in the chat or right here on the screen. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. Now, let's get back to our experts to follow up on some of those things that you mentioned. Let's start with you, Sally. So Woodsy talked about different types of forests. So over here in the East Coast, we're in the Chesapeake Bay area. And, I think of a bay, I'm thinking of water. What does that have to do with forest types?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, MChat. So in the Chesapeake Bay, we try to improve the water quality of not just the bay, but all the streams and rivers emptying into the bay. So we call that watershed forestry. And our watershed of the Chesapeake Bay is quite large. It covers parts of 7 states. So it's a big task. And what we do is we don't just pay attention to the national forests. We have, as the video said, a lot of private forests in the east, and those are very important to water quality. So we have a great diversity of these forests in the east, especially with these deciduous trees, the ones that lose their leaves. And we have a lot of urban forests here. So we have urban and rural forests, and forests everywhere are important to water quality because forests are able to absorb rainfall and also filter it. And so clean water is coming off of forests, as has been mentioned, as one of the forest products. So I just wanted to especially emphasize those forests. So all forests are important, but some are more important than others. And what we pay especially close attention to, because we have so many streams and rivers here in this watershed, are the riparian forests. So those forests that line the streams and lakes and rivers around here. So those riparian forests are particularly important, and we want to restore it and conserve those as much as possible.
Thank you, Sally, for that very condensed message so we could understand how forests help clean water. For those who might be interested in learning more, you can always visit our past distance learning adventures. We have one called Freshwater Live. Go to freshwaterlive.org to learn even more. Nothing like a delicious forest product. All right, so now let me come to you for a minute, Daisy, because I live in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I know what all of that looks like. I've also visited your area before, and I'll say it looks totally different than where we are here on the east. So can you tell our folks a little bit more about forests where you live in New Mexico?
Sure thing. So many of you might remember the cartoon Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, and that might be your typical image that you think of when you think of the Southwest. And you might think of those iconic saguaro cacti, which are an endemic species, meaning that they only occur in one area. And those are the kinds of things we have in the Southwest, those typical iconic cactus can sometimes be considered trees, but we also have higher elevations, and we have the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world in our region. It's 2.5 million acres of ponderosa pine forest, and we have a diversity of landscapes, a diversity of people, and diversity of species. Some of the highest biodiversity occurs in the Southwest region. So from low elevation at sea level all the way to mountain peaks over 13,000 feet, you're going to find a lot of different forests out here in the Southwest, and those riparian areas as well, with forests along those rivers and watersheds. Thanks, Amcat.
Daisy, thanks for painting the picture for us that there's lots of diverse types of forests. At the Forest Service, we actually have a diverse set of uses. We call those multiple uses. We do recreation. We allow for you to come out and enjoy yourself, biking, hiking, all sorts of fun things. And then we also grow our trees as an agricultural product because they make lots of different products. And so if you think about a forest, the Forest Service land is kind of like, if you're in a museum, this is like the touch tank. You can come into this part of the museum and you can interact with all sorts of things on the land. As long as you're not harming those trees, you can walk through there and taste berries as long as they're the kind that you know you can eat. You should always check with somebody before you do that. But people use our forest for lots of different things. There are some cultures, native cultures, who still live and subsist on products that come right off of the forest. So what a diverse place. Man, forests are awesome. Daisy, can I ask you a little bit about interconnections in the forest? Okay. I understand that you are a forest therapy guide. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that mean? How does that all connect with our health and feeling good?
Thanks for asking, Amchat. So forest therapy is maybe newer to America, but definitely something that happens internationally and really got its start in Japan from some Japanese foresters and researchers. And what they discovered is that humans, we evolved in the forest and we have a special connection to them. So when trees or other plants send out chemical signals from their different stimuli in their environment, such as maybe insect attack or weather changes, they release a chemical substance called phytoncides. And when humans breathe in those phytoncides through our mouth, our nose, even through our skin, we produce a certain kind of cell called a natural killer cell, which boosts our immunity and our own ability to fight disease, viruses, bacteria. So the Japanese termed this breathing in the forest, breathing in the atmosphere, Shinrin Yoku, or forest bathing. And so here in the United States, we have a slightly altered practice of forest therapy, which involves either remotely or in person getting together with different people, doing some invitations, and really exploring our connection to our land wherever we are and to each other. And to really experience this with people around the globe is amazing. So thank you for asking about this really great practice that helps us heal and our forest too.
Oh, thank you for helping people to understand that. Quick note, Daisy. I've done forest bathing here in Maryland and down in Central America. And it's a very different experience every time. So thanks to you and all of the other folks who helped bring forest bathing to us. Okay. You are so cool. Thank you. So can one of you help me understand what an experimental forest is? I'm going to ask that because these questions are coming in fast and furious. Can you help our folks at home understand what an experimental forest is?
I'd be happy to jump in on that. I think it was very briefly mentioned in one of the videos, but an experimental forest is one that's managed by the Forest Service as a way for researchers and scientists to come and specifically for them to learn more about forest processes. So they're scattered all across the country. We have many research forests. Some are focused on watersheds. Some are focused on other species, old growth, for instance. So they have many. They're diverse too, and they're spread around.
Interesting. Thank you. How does any of this connect to climate change?
Well, of course, experimental forests are a place that we can measure some of the carbon capturing that the forest is doing. So many folks are familiar with, trees are one of our best tools for combating climate change and absorbing and storing carbon that comes from the carbon dioxide in the air. It's part of the carbon cycle. This is how our forests grow, through the cycling of carbon and photosynthesis. So that's one way the U.S. Forest Service is looking at climate change. And climate change is also, we think about it a lot because when we grow new forests, we want to make sure they're going to survive in whatever the climate is becoming. So we try to get nice diversity of species if we're going to replant a forest. That's really important because we don't really know like everything about each species, and they all have strengths. And then also we want to make sure we're planting quality stock. So we have forest health experts who really look at which species, which trees, which individuals out there are resistant to certain pests that are becoming more prominent with climate change. So that's important to do too.
Ooh, thank you, Sally, for all of that picture. Daisy, can I ask you, how are people, regular people like me when I don't have my uniform on, or my friends at home, how are they getting involved on forests? What are ways that people can volunteer and get engaged to lend a hand and care for the land?
Oh, there are so many ways that you can get involved. So I believe in the video they mentioned citizen science. That's a really great way that you can get involved. iNaturalist, iTree, the various platforms to record your own observations where you are. You can join in a local cleanup. You can do wilderness monitoring. You can restore those watersheds that Sally was talking about. You can help wildlife and wildlife habitat. And one thing you can do to really help us is tell others about being outside, getting outside, the Forest Service, your local parks, really communicating with others and communicating with us, sharing your stories. That's another way you can get involved and volunteer with us.
Oh, nice. Great point. So folks can go out and do things by them on, or excuse me, they can help us as individuals, but they can also share with their friends and family that everybody can come and join in, because there really is a space for everyone. Thank you for sharing that, Daisy. You know what? There's lots of questions coming in, and I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. These are all great, everybody. Keep them coming. Now, in the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to another friend of mine. His name is Marty Fry. Now, Marty was once a volunteer, and now he's an urban forest manager for the city of Tacoma Park in Maryland. And I'd love for you to hear his story. Nobody tells it better than he does. So take it away, Marty.
Thanks, Samchat. My name's Marty Fry. I'm an arborist, and I work as the urban forest manager for the city of Tacoma Park. An urban forester is someone trained in tree science and tree health, specifically with regards to how they exist and live and thrive, or maybe are impacted by their experience in the urban environment. The benefits of trees for city life are numerous. The one most often talked about is the shade they provide. There's something called the urban heat island effect, where because of all the concrete in cities and built infrastructure, it can be very hot, much hotter than in the surrounding farmland and forest. Trees in the city actually do a great job to counteract that and cool the area. They also soak up water that might fall from the rain, which helps alleviate problems with overflowing our stormwater systems. They can also provide food if you plant the right species, which can be fun, and they get to actually go touch their tree and tend to it and harvest the product. The most important skills for being in the career of urban forestry, it ends up being both a mixture of knowing your trees and the tree science really well, but also knowing people really well, and also some other interesting fields of work that you might not think are quite as related to trees, like construction and roadway maintenance and utility line maintenance. There's lots of ways that people and very untree things interact with our trees. Every day I'm talking to homeowners who may have concerns with their trees that a bit of science can help alleviate. I'm working with utility companies who may need to clear some of the branches around their wires. And with a bit of advice from an urban forester, you can do that in a responsible way that can preserve the health of the tree, but also preserve other functions like providing power and internet. Advice for young people perhaps looking to get into this kind of work. For me, getting out in the woods when I was younger was great. Later in high school, I was able to work with the Student Conservation Association, which is where I met Amchat when he was a crew leader, a mentor of mine who sort of helped me not only appreciate the woods kind of for fun, but also to see that you could work in the woods. That was doing more trail work and conservation work. So find ways to get in the woods, be it for fun or be it for helping out with that kind of trail work or volunteering. There's a really fun and exciting community of plants that can teach you a lot. We all need to be good stewards of our environment, and that can mean worrying about climate change globally, but it can also mean taking care of your backyard. You can look at your yard and see how are you and maybe your family or your neighbors contributing to maintaining a good tree canopy. It can be very personal, very close to home that you can get involved with this kind of work and start to care about it. All it really takes to start is to start looking, to start noticing what's around you, and it can be really fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty. I really appreciate that. Let's talk to some of our experts here. Sally, how about you? I know that you do a good bit with community and community forests. How did you get interested in that, or even interested in your career?
Well, as a matter of fact, I also was part of Student Conservation Association, just like you and Marty Fry. That was way back in the 1980s, but it was a really great program and start. I actually started with the Forest Service out west, and then I became a botanist out west. I was always interested in plants, even as a young girl. And so I got into botany, and then the Forest Service needed some botanists. And after I did that for about 15 years, I moved over to the East Coast where all the people are. And this is where the urban forestry comes in that Marty Fry was talking about. And he works in Tacoma Park. And he is one of our local partners in the Chesapeake watershed. Urban forests are really important to us because we have so many people here. 18 million people live in our watershed. So the role that the Forest Service plays in managing and protecting and working with our urban forests is really critical, especially since most people in the country live in urban areas. It just kind of makes sense. So we want to make sure that the urban forest persists for them. So that's kind of a little mix about how I got going.
Awesome, thanks, Sally. Speaking of those urban forests, on those hot days when we're driving our car, we'll stop at the red light. We'll be in the shade. My son now knows. He'll go, "Thanks, urban forestry." So it's kind of funny. Forests are everywhere, and that just appreciation really helps to bring us closer to our forests. So thank you for that. Daisy, what are some of the things that you would advise young people to study or do or volunteer in to sort of stay close to these environmental careers?
Well, there's a lot of different paths that lead over here. My own path. I, as Carmen in the video, grew up in urban Chicago. I also grew up in urban Chicago, and I did not learn about the Forest Service until I was much older as an adult person. So, but I did love the outdoors. I loved growing up on Lake Michigan, and I love to read and observe. So reading, writing, observation are all really important. And then if you like science and math, those are really important. If you want to become a scientist, for me, I am the first generation of my family to go to college and to become a scientist. So it was a little overwhelming, to say the least, as I wasn't sure how to get started or what to do, but I really loved plants and animals, and I worked in animal rescue and then later veterinary medicine. And then from there is really where I went to school and got my conservation biology degree. And later I went for a master's in cave and karst science, which I have a degree in geochemistry. So I didn't start out loving the sciences, but it was something that sort of came to me through different routes. But in the Forest Service, we have jobs for all kinds of different fields. So anything that you love, anything that you're passionate about, really explore that and find yourself, because there's not always a straight line or a straight path. Sometimes it winds around to different parts, and you just never know where you may end up.
Great point, Daisy. Thank you. Now, I heard you say you're a cave and karst scientist. I learned about cave and karst through a distance learning program right here. And if you are interested in learning more, you can check out caveslive.org. And you brought up a point. Let's see if Sally has anything that she wants to say about this path towards careers, because there is no one straight path. Thank you for saying that, Daisy. Sally, what's the best subject to study if you want to help the environment?
Ooh. Well, I would say whatever is most interesting to you. It started out for me to be plants, but I was also really interested in the Chesapeake Bay because I grew up in and around the Chesapeake Bay. So that's where I made the switch. And I also was very interested in people and good policies for people. So I was really happy to I liked working out on the national forests and in the wilderness, and all that was really beautiful. But I also really enjoyed working where it really mattered, like immediately to people in the East. So there's many different ways to plug in. I think it's been captured, but I would just say, just start asking around and do some research and find your resources, your local resources, whether they're with the U.S. Forest Service or our partners on state and private forestry. So state forestry, like we have lots of nonprofit partners we work with. Those are all good stepping stones. And volunteering is really important. That's how I got started too, became a volunteer.
Wow, interesting. I didn't know that fact about the three of us, as we all started off with volunteering. Very cool. I guess it works. For some young people out there, you might want to check out youth conservation corps. It's a great way to volunteer, get some community service hours, and give back to the land, and even see if there's a career out there for you. All right, this is all exciting. Let's look at some of the videos that were submitted by other people in terms of how Woodsy Owl has inspired them. So let's see what's going on.
Happy 50th birthday, Woodsy Owl, my favorite anthropomorphic owl that has winged hands and the ability to talk.
I first learned about Woodsy Owl when I started with the Forest Service as a resource assistant intern in August of 2019.
I first learned about Woodsy Owl when I transitioned my career from a classroom educator to an outdoor educator. He reminds us how important it is for all of us to do our part to take care of nature.
Woodsy Owl's message is as important as ever here, as we are focused on improving and increasing natural habitat for native tallgrass prairie species.
Woodsy inspires me to be a good steward of the land, no matter where I am, whether it's near a national forest like the Willamette National Forest in Oregon, or next to an urban center like Washington, D.C.
Woodsy Owl inspires me to be the best steward of land I can be, regardless if it's a national forest like Tahoe or an urban neighborhood park like the ones I grew up at.
Woodsy's all about conservation. Woodsy's all about lending a hand, caring for the land. It's innate in his core values of conservation and fostering those connections to the outdoors with others.
With the Illinois River Watch Network and volunteers, we monitor water quality year after year.
I love what I get to do in terms of conservation education and my work at Gray Towers.
Monitoring is the first step to ensure that these species continue to exist on this tallgrass prairie and elsewhere.
We create the experiences, whether they're informal or they're formal, for people to get in the outdoors and have a nature experience.
Happy birthday to you.
And that transcends into, hopefully, a lifelong experience of citizen stewardship and maybe creates the next wildlife biologist that's working for the Forest Service.
Happy birthday to you.
I do my best to lend a hand and care for the land, and I encourage others to do the same.
Happy birthday, dear Woodsy.
I can always remember to lend a hand, care for the land, and give a hoot, don't pollute, and take small steps to make the environment a better place for everyone around me and for generations to come.
Happy birthday to you.
A very special thanks to all lending a hand out there, and a thank you and happy birthday to you, Woodsy Owl.
Happy birthday, Woodsy. Happy 50th.
Thanks, Woodsy Owl, and happy birthday!
Thank you, Woodsy Owl, and happy 50th birthday.
Woo woo!
Ah, how fun was that? Thank you all for sharing your videos. Oh, man, all this enthusiasm. I love seeing what inspires you about sustainability and about conservation. How about you, either Daisy or Sally? What inspires you nowadays in your life, in your world, around conservation or sustainability?
Well, I'm inspired by my children and wanting to make sure that we have a environment that's the same or better for them when they're my age that we have today, and then for their children's children too.
Oh, that's so awesome. How about you, Daisy?
So I'm inspired by many things, but definitely by some of the youth that I've worked with over the years and really their abilities to have innovative and creative ideas and how we can kind of work across different generations to bring all of our knowledge together. And then I would say that really Woodsy's message about, caring for the land, I think caring is one of these superpowers that we all have the ability to have within us, and really being able to care for ourselves so we're strong and healthy, care for our families, care for our communities, care for our homes and our planet. This is something we all can do wherever we are, and all of us doing our own individual caring can add up to a lot in the long run. So love that.
Right. Oh, thanks, Daisy. And we have to remember that people are a part of nature, and you all keep reminding us of that. I work for the Forest Service and I love working for the forest, but really it's the people. Because if you think about our motto, it's about the land, it's about the land, and it's about the people. Okay, so we have to remember that we're protecting the land and serving the people. And speaking of people, some of my favorite people is Mrs. Purcell's class in Georgia. And they're wondering, what's the most interesting thing that you've done in your job? The most interesting.
Well, I had an interesting job for a while. Part of my job was actually to work on an experimental forest in Washington State. And at the time, we were really interested in learning more about the forest canopy. So 100, 200 feet up above the floor of the forest, these really big old growth trees, they had some very interesting things growing there that we didn't know a lot about. So what I did was I became a tree climber as part of my job. So I went up into the trees with my hard hat and my ropes and my hand lens so I could look at some of the plants that were growing up there. And we documented those plants and other things that we found from way up high off the forest floor. It was very exciting. And I made it back safely every day.
I love the toss about safety. Yes, tree climbing is great. And professionally, we do it safely. So note to all you kids at home, there's a right way to do this. Don't just do it without supervision, okay? Stay out of the trees until you know exactly how to do it. How about you, Daisy? What's something that you would say is the most interesting thing you've done at your job?
Well, I'm lucky to have many interesting things happening all the time. So it's a little hard to pick the most interesting, but I really do. At my regional office, we have a variety of different youth programs, paid opportunities with our residential Youth Conservation Corps, where youth from all over the nation come to either Arizona or New Mexico and live there and work over the summer. And so I love meeting all of those new participants all the time. And also we have a lot of great high school age programs such as Forest Bound. And one time I got to go out with the Forest Bound participants and learn about how to use plants for food and medicine. So we had some local elders telling us about how plants might be used for food and medicine. And then we made some food and some tea from the plants in that area. And that was really amazing to learn about.
Thank you, Daisy. Now, if I get to answer this question, lots and lots of different opportunities. I love any chance that I get to interact with the public and share the stories about the value of forests. Okay. My favorite experience, though, if I have to just pick one for right now, was the day I got to go snorkeling in the forest. People always picture snorkeling out with sharks and the Great Barrier Reef, and all that's cool. But man, I went snorkeling in a national forest, and there's so much going on under the water that I hadn't really thought about. And so getting chances to get out and see and experience your forest, I recommend that for you. And then that might be the most interesting thing that you do before you come and work for us, work with us. Okay, let's see. We're going to have to go to close in 1 second. So maybe one of you wants to answer this one for Miss Meehan's class in Jackson. What's the most interesting animal or insect you've ever seen?
I saw a bobcat once in the forest and a badger. That was pretty neat.
Wow.
And I also saw a bobcat in the forest getting a rabbit. At first, I didn't see the bobcat. I only saw the rabbit. And then the bobcat came whoosh right out of the brush, got the rabbit, and went up the ridge. It was one of those wildlife moments.
Wow. Mine was that same snorkeling trip. I saw a thing called a hell bender. It's a fish that's like a dinosaur, like a lizard thing. It's the coolest, scariest looking thing. And it's great to see them because they live in fresh, clean water. They can't live in very polluted water. So seeing it was really a blessing. Lets us know we're doing something right. Yay! Okay. You know what, you all, this is so fun, but this is about all the time that we have for today's program. But you know what? Don't worry. If you didn't get your question in or answered yet, we have a whole other program coming up in April of 2022. So be sure to join us again. So I hope this program has inspired you to take some time to learn more about Woodsy Owl's message of lend a hand, care for the land. Yes. And you can always go to the Forest Service websites to learn more. You know, you can learn more about symbols like Smokey and Woodsy. And we'd love to hear from you about this program. So feel free to send us a message at FS, like Forest Service, FS, Conservation Education at gmail.com. Let us know tell us what you've been doing to help conserve and protect our environment. And now to close us out, is there any one thing that you experts would want kids to know? What can they do to lend a hand, care for land? Just one thing if you can. What would it be?
I would say learn about it, learn more about your land, your forests and your public lands and all forests, and talk about it, and do art and music, and have that be the focus so you grow and it helps the forest and the people around you too.
Get outside with your family and friends and care for each other and care for your home.
Awesome sauce. I already mentioned the youth conservation course, so that's one, but then I can add one more. Check out itreetools.org. It puts a dollar value on the ecosystem services trees provide right there in your neighborhood. You can develop a much deeper relationship to the trees right beside you. It's really a cool tool. It's a professional level tool that's accessible to you. Just like all of these distance learning programs, and this one is coming to an end. So I just really want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to our presenters, Daisy, Sally, to all those folks asking and answering questions on Facebook, and of course to you watching in your classrooms and at home right now. Lastly, certainly not least, thank you, Woodsy Owl, and everybody, come on, wish Woodsy a 50th birthday. Happy birthday, everybody. Happy birthday, Woodsy. Come on, lend a hand, care for the land. Give a hoot, don't pollute. Lend a hand, care for the land.